how to let it go, how to let things go in our life. How to let it go when we're hurt, when we lose a loved one, let's say, or losing a loved one, or you know ending a marriage or a relationship where it can't be fixed. We seem to think it can't be fixed. Difficulties in life, overcoming adversity and overcoming struggles, and just how to overcome adversity is the topic of today's For a Better Life podcast. Welcome, everyone, and good morning. This is James Nussbaumer, and for those of you that don't know me, I am the author of a great series of books that begins with The Master of Everything. It's a story of mankind in the world of illusion we call life, and its sequel is Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, Lessons from A Course in Miracles, and book 3 is called And Then I Knew My Abundance, which has just been released. All 3 books published by Ozark Mountain Publishing Company, and more on the way. I'm so thrilled about it. But how to let go and get over the adversities that we face. I don't think any one of us in this world can say that we've never had to learn how to just let it go when a life difficulty seemed to have been tearing at us somehow. Regardless of overcoming adversities, life has actually really been difficult at times for many of us, including myself. But actually, life can be complete when we just learn how to let things go and finding newer experiences. It's early in the morning, so I'm going to sip on some coffee here, if you don't mind. It's 6 a.m. this morning, and the sun is just starting to peek up. But there are times in my own life when, and I'm sure it's the same with you, that when I've made choices based on exactly what others have determined for me, and I went the direction they seem to have suggested for me, and not exactly the direction I wanted to head in, I seem to run into troubles. Not that I'm blaming anyone. It's my own fault for not going with my heart on certain matters. And I'm not alone. We've all done that. But I've included in this podcast, in this For a Better Life podcast, if you're listening to it at YouTube, you can find an article version of this over at my blog, and in the description area down below at YouTube, excuse me again, we'll give you a link to my safe website where you can find that written material version of this podcast. But there's a story that I want to talk about today that it's kind of funny, and it's a fun story, and it's taken from my second book of the series called Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom. And the story urges us to learn how to let it go, especially when, perhaps losing a loved one, or when a loved one dies and we seem to not be able to get over that. But as you're thinking about exactly how to learn, newer things, and, maybe as a child, we made many mistakes, not maybe, we did, and we had to learn things like falling down and getting back up, but isn't that much like what life is about today with all the life struggles that we're up against? It just seems that that's what life is all about, facing hurdles every day. We stumble and we hurt ourselves, and, we just keep healing as life goes on, it seems. It just seems we know how to heal, and we eventually know how to overcome those struggles over and over again. So let me describe a conversation a man once had with my friend Connie and I together. Connie is an artist, wonderful sketcher and painter of portraits, and she's into sculpturing too. Just a tremendous talent she has. But I want to describe a conversation that actually the conversation was with her and this man. I was just along with Connie listening in. But we never know the struggles in life that other people are facing when we're talking to someone who we may have just met. But it's like A Course in Miracles states, Every brother you meet becomes a witness for Christ or for the ego, depending on what you perceive in him. Doesn't that kind of make sense? I'll repeat this. Every brother you meet becomes a witness for Christ or for the ego, depending on how you're perceiving him. It seems that, we as human beings, continually, a part of us wants to be always judging others, and it's hard for us to often accept them for who they truly are. But let's talk about losing a loved one. Excuse me again. Let me take another sip of coffee here. One Saturday morning, Connie and I were seated in the bleachers of a little league ball field watching her son play baseball. And as Connie was closing her sketchbook, there was this strange man who came up and wanted to talk. And he says, I see you're doing some sketching. Can I see him? Now, I'm going to try my best to imitate this gentleman, and I'll describe him in a second too. But he was Irish, and his name was O'Malley. But all of a sudden, our concentration was interrupted by the booming voice of this tall, portly man who was the grandfather of another baseball player at the game that day. The older man darted out of the starting gate with a full gallop of questions, yet clearly not one for judging others. You could tell that. He seemed to be a straight shooter. But Connie extended her hand as O'Malley's eyes met hers, and with a stare and a pretty long glare, he was one of those men that loves to make eye contact. And he glanced at me with a nod, just glanced at me. And it was evident that he didn't really want to speak with me. He was wanting to speak with Connie. Now, I got to tell you, Connie even to this day, is a very attractive woman. Now, this was years ago, and she was very, very, she would turn the heads of many men. She was a very, very good-looking woman. But Connie flipped through about 10 pages of her sketchbook for O'Malley to glance at. And all the drawings were of her son in various poses around the baseball diamond. Now, this man O'Malley was very unusual, which is why my memory must have really held on to him so fondly. But I've been seeing you here, he says, let me back up and try to talk like O'Malley. I've been seeing you here for the longest time, and I'm wondering what kind of life belongs to such a fine-mannered woman. Would you mind telling me about yourself? How you doing, ma'am? Nice to meet you. The name is O'Malley. And he slapped his right knee. O'Malley paused just briefly for Connie to give him a little nod that she didn't mind answering a few personal questions. O'Malley was very friendly. And Connie was very startled, though, but in a trusting way. And I just smiled in mild and fun amusement as we both looked up at his ruddy face that framed a mouth just that kept moving backwards and forward like he was chewing something all the time. He had these wide frame glasses and a graying handlebar mustache, a huge, huge mustache. And he says, as he slapped his knee again, "Where did you grow up?" "Oh, on Lake Erie, eh? What's the water like there?" "I miss my wife that way too. In that way, mind you, I mean. Did the car accident kill anyone else?" he added, after Connie mentioning losing a loved one, her sister, in a car crash, which was just a few weeks before this ball game event we were at. So Connie was still mourning her sister. But as Connie explained to O'Malley the situation, O'Malley just stared and paused out over the ball field like he was in some deep thought. And it was as though he didn't know what to say. And it was a few moments before he spoke again. And he finally says, "I couldn't get my wife to the hospital in time. Dadgummit. She died right in my car, she did. Sometimes when I walk into our kitchen, I can still smell her perfume, and I can almost see her standing there, just gazing out the backyard, out the window to the backyard into her wonderful garden that she always planted every year. And he added, "What happened to your sissy?" he claimed. He asked, he calmly claimed, he finally claimed that, he was still sorrowing over his wife as he wanted to know, what had happened with Connie's sister. So he went on, he says, "And did you ever win a fishing contest? The trying's what gives me a charge." Well, he was trying to change the subject again because he felt as though he touched a wound when he asked Connie to explain what happened to her sister in the car accident. But Connie did explain, and you could tell Connie was glassy-eyed and watery-eyed as she was explaining. But O'Malley blurted out, "There's something real important about being able to miss somebody that much, even after they've been gone for years. It kind of makes you a better person, don't you think? Do you have your mom and your dad still yet with you? Are they with you? Yeah?" He was aware of the nature of forgiveness and the importance of knowing how to let things go. "And what made you settle on being a Christian?" he added. "Has religion always been important to you?" "Well, I'll be darned," he added. This O'Malley guy, he had no reservations about finding the truth about Connie. A Course in Miracles states, so I want to add another principle from the Course. Course in Miracles states, "What can it be but arrogance to think your little errors cannot be undone by heaven's justice? Justice looks on all in the same way and demands no sacrifice." O'Malley had no inclination to ever or even suggest judging others to my friend Connie, while simply showing understanding and his knowledge of, the feelings in her heart. "Oh, well, not so bad being divorced," he added. "It seems you're a good mom, though." Connie explained that she's also divorced, as he also looked over at me. "You think you're a little hard on the boy, do you? Well, I guess that's just being a good parent and all." Connie also explained that she was a little strict on her son and why he's a good boy. But, O'Malley showed no need to label Connie at all or to prove himself to be an expert with any need to be judging others, like I had said. "Isn't it just great?" he chuckled with a raspy voice. He kind of had a more raspier voice than I can imitate. But he liked Connie for what she was, and there was nothing about Connie's past that could change the way that he saw her. He was unabashed and spontaneous, and he had no judgments or pretensions to make. He was never flustered by the response or a topic Connie gave, and not a type of individual for judging others. I like that in him myself. But no matter how terrible the facts might seem to be, or any of her wrongdoings in the past, he had no inhibitions about uncovering them. He wasn't trying to be sneaky or open a can of worms. And then he added, he said, "Say, where's your husband? Where's your ex-husband?" Well, of course, he looked over at me again and smiled. He was trying to be a little ornery there. "Laughing's the best medicine, I always say. When you're mad, I'll bet you're a handful, aren't you, Connie? I'll bet you've got yourself a sense of humor, too. Well, that's just great." O'Malley's questions just went on, and they took an unusual turn without any intent, like I had said, for, being judgmental. And then he asked, he said, "Do you believe in God, eh? A Christian? Well, isn't that something?" But, let's talk a little bit, too, as we're thinking about O'Malley here, learning from life's difficulties, as definitely was the case with O'Malley losing his wife and Connie losing her sister. And, as you look back on the life that you yourself have actually lived so much, do you have any kind of sensation or any sensation of regret or being sorry for something? Or have you chosen to learn how to let go and begin again, while learning from the past? How to let it go gives us a lesson on getting back up when we fall down. Believe me, for those of you that know my story, that's what I've had to do. But we've all had the different experiences of falling down and getting back up. I have to confess myself that difficulties in life is, very full of such traumas as losing a loved one, or when a loved one dies, or like I'd mentioned earlier, a broken marriage that only seems that maybe it cannot be fixed. Often we don't give ourselves enough time to let things heal and maybe mend a marriage, just as for example. But how to let things go and how to just let go of things means understanding that some place along the way, we as humans are always going to make errors. Regardless of how to overcome adversity, life has actually really been difficult for all of us, yet has actually been complete for us all too when we can set our sails on discovering new experiences. Think about that when we just let it go and say, I'm moving on now. I'm just moving on. There were times in my own life when I made choices, of course, that were not of my better judgment. And I had to learn how to let it go. I had to learn how to get back up again and learn from that experience and then start moving forward in life. In making life's choices, don't you agree that making them on your own without maybe, feeling that you have to follow the well-intended but misinformed, meaningful, but like I said, misinformed suggestions from others, in order to, don't you agree that maybe if following your own heart and following your own inner judgment is the way to success in your own life? In order to find out how to let it go and move on in life, to move forward in life, or we may say to go with life and all its hurdles as we have to face them and get over them, learn that there are hurdles we have to climb over. But you must make your own options and learn along the way how to maybe sometime if you can't get over a hurdle because it's too high, maybe you can go around it. After all, how to let it go is of the habits of highly effective people everywhere who have ever lived, who live now, and certainly for those yet to arrive in this world. And it's how successful people grow. Also at my blog, there's a related article I'd love for you to take a look at, which I'm going to include in the written version of this podcast. I'll have the link there in that written version, the transcribed version of this. But this related article may help, and it's about how to let things go by increasing your self-awareness and personal growth with a self-awareness test or quiz, if you will, that can help you to see where your self-awareness is at. Do you need to increase self-awareness? As I close here, I like to always add, I hope you're thinking a lot about your own life and all the natural gifts that you possess inside, and that the world just wants you to extend them because the world needs your inner beauty to be seen by everyone and for you to share yourself with the world. And, I also invite you right here today to sign up for my Everyday Miracles newsletter. And it's where when I say we, I mean you, the reader, and I, the author, bring our minds together for self-success and for a better life. And I hope that you will support my work. I have a lot to offer, and I hope you will buy my books. They're on Amazon. You can go directly to Ozark Mountain Publishing Company. They're in stores wherever books are sold. And if you go to a bookstore and my book for some reason is not on that bookshelf, those books, please ask at the desk if they could get it there. Because a lot of times it's up to the author to make sure that books are in the appropriate stores everywhere. And You know, some stores may have it, some stores may not, and I can't get out to every store. So wherever you are, in whatever corner of the earth that you're in, if you go into a store looking for my books and they don't have it, would you tell them that you're there on my behalf to suggest that they get my books in that store? Also, please follow me on Twitter. I just love engaging on Twitter. My handle there is JASNUSS, Jasnus. It's an abbreviation of my name. And Facebook. I have an author page at Facebook and my normal regular page. Please follow me there. And Google Plus, if you're on Google Plus. And also, as always, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you're at my website right now listening to me, in the header above and the footer below is a YouTube icon that you can click on and instantly join my YouTube channel. And if you're at YouTube, well, you know what to do there to subscribe. I hope today's story with O'Malley, I really didn't do any justice on imitating him the way I would like. It's just, you know, one of those things I will never be able to share totally 100%. The man was so hilarious, but so down to earth and such a sweet gentleman in his accent, his Irish, kind of a country Irish accent was just stunning. And Connie and I that afternoon when we left the ballpark with her son, we just laughed for a couple hours. We went out to lunch afterwards, and we were telling her son about the man, and he said he knows who the guy is because one of his mates on his one of his teammates on the team, that was his grandfather. So Mr. O'Malley. So I hope you enjoyed this today, and I wish the best for you. I've got to run now. It's a long day ahead of me. I hope you have a wonderful day. James Nussbaumer signing off, and God bless.